Well, I was wrong. Welcome to my review of WandaVision Episode 7, Breaking the Fourth Wall. As always, there's a spoiler warning for this review, so do watch the episode. Before watching it, we're finally getting answers, my friends, so let's talk about it. As Monica plots her return to the inside of the Hex, Wanda navigates unsettling complications and Vision forms a new alliance with Darcy Lewis, who is now on the inside of the bubble. And before we crack on with my thoughts, let me know what you thought. Are you enjoying WandaVision? Did you enjoy this episode? Do you enjoy finally getting answers? And while you're heading down there, why not click the subscribe button if you haven't yet? Keeps you up to date on every time I post a video for theory videos, trailer reactions, movie reviews, and all that sorts of good stuff. And if you want to support the channel even more, why not click those links from my merch stores on TeePublic and Redbubble, also in the description. So this episode is very clearly inspired by Modern Family. There's this whole look and feel about it. The intro feels even like a mix of Modern Family and The Office. I would have much preferred an Office episode, by the way, but this is as good as one can get, keeping with the feel of the show thus far. And Wanda right now, she is just exhausted, and you can even see a little bit that she's now entering the stage of anger when it comes to her grief, because I've been telling you guys, it is what this show is about. It's her grief. It's not gonna end well, and it's been leading up to that up until now, and this episode continues that. So Wanda is so exhausted, and conveniently Agnes comes into the door and suggests she takes care of the kids today and lets Wanda rest. One nice little detail that we saw as well was that Wanda just opens the door as soon as someone knocks, and without even interacting with Agnes, she says, "Hello, Agnes," before she even says a single word, which is a nice little detail given the reveals we have at the end of the episode. And as all this is going on, Vision is assumed to be a clown by the circus people, and he goes into Darcy because he remembers her from the previous night, and she's now an escape artist for the circus. So he puts her out of the trance, and they both begin a road trip to Vision and Wanda's house. And Paul Bettany just crushes the entirety of this episode. His timing, his reactions, some of the lines he even says feel like they were very much ad-libbed and not on the script to give this a little bit of punch and life. And it's so freaking good. His interactions with Darcy, talking about what she has learned from the outside, and we learn officially, not only from them, but also from Monica and Jimmy Woo, that Hayward actually wanted to turn Vision into a weapon, feeding into my Ultron theory that I uploaded a few days ago. If you haven't checked it out, there will be a link for that at the end of this video and in the comments below as well on my pinned comment. And Vision honestly comes into a breaking point because he's just talking to the interviewer and he's like, "Wait, what the hell am I doing here? I can fly. I need to go to my wife." And so we see him taking off the lapel mic, bumping into the boom, and then going through the van and heading home as Darcy is waiting for children to cross the road in this road that seemingly is out in nowhere land. And so the first really intriguing scene that gives this specific episode that initial feel of sinistry and dread is when Billy and Tommy are sitting with Agnes. They're watching TV, they're having a little snack, they're petting the cute little bunny that she owns, and Agnes is just sitting in the middle of them. And Billy says that this house is quiet. He cannot hear anything on the inside. Which, yes, leads us into the ending of this episode, and we'll get there because the theories that I had were right about Monica, because she goes and meets someone who I guess was not the space engineer. So that's up to next week, I guess. I guess we all thought it was going to be today, but it's not. And so they have this rover, this jeep kind of thing for her to get into the barrier, and she can't. It starts to mutate and going through time, and half of the truck ends up as a really old regular truck, and the backside stays the same, and it gets exploded out. But Monica, very brave, a decision that makes us very easily root for this character who is selfless and who is making a sacrifice, but also at the same time, I was like, no, that's being stupid, Monica. But she crosses the barrier against all odds. We see her dismantling, kind of like Vision did, but in a human way. We see all the versions we've seen thus far of her, from inside and outside and inside the barrier, and we hear voices. We hear young Monica, we hear her mother, we hear some dialogue that we've heard so far in the show about her learning that her mother is dead, and she concentrates, I guess, and brings herself back together. And it's official, Photon has come to the MCU. Monica has her powers and contact lenses as well for her eyes to be a beautiful blue. And so Monica heads into Wanda's house to warn her about Hayward and about Vision, about what is actually going on that she knows of. And Wanda just flips out officially in the anger stage. She knows what she's doing is wrong, but she doesn't care. And she yells for Monica to get out, and as they're about to fight because Monica can resist when Wanda drops her from the sky, Agnes intercepts the conversation and just says for Monica to go away. And as Agnes takes Wanda into her house, the horror element truly takes over this episode. Wanda sits down on the couch. She starts noticing too much silence. She starts noticing that the kids are not anywhere, but there's a mostly eaten sandwich, 2 sandwiches in fact, on the coffee table. There's cartoons playing, or a children's show playing on the TV, and there's even a fly on the curtain at Agnes's house, and Mephisto has disguised himself as flies before, so he's not completely out of the equation as of right now. At least. Could just be an Easter egg. And there's a shot that I'm not sure right now what was going on, but there's a shot of Wanda, like a mid shot of her, and you see something moving in the background. And at the time I was watching the episode, I was like, oh shit, it's Ralph. We're gonna see Ralph. We're gonna see the husband Ralph, aka Mephisto. But that doesn't happen. That doesn't happen. I still think there was something sketchy going on back there, and I still don't think it is Agnes, and we'll get to the ending of this episode in a bit, but I think we got one answer right now, but we got lots of answers in fact, but there's still much more to answer, because again in this episode we had another Ultron name drop. And so Wanda asks where are the kids, and Agnes says they're in the basement. So Wanda heads down to the basement, and she starts to see all these vines and roots, and it's just really old basement, and she calls for the kids, they're not anywhere. She gets into a room that looks like a fucking satanic coven, and is also very similar to Ultron's lair back in Age of Ultron. So could Agnes be trying to bring Ultron back in a way? So I was right that Ultron is actually going to be the villain, but it's not actually Hayward. The possibilities just, at the same time that they diminished, there are more possibilities at the same time. Ones were cut out, but now we have new ones. And so I get the reveal that Agnes is Agatha Harkness. There's even an intro for her, because now it's her show. She did this all from the beginning. In episode 3, she put Herb under a trance for him to cut the fence. In last week's episode, she was faking the trance when Vision was talking to her, and she brought Pietro back herself. Still not the right Pietro. I still think there's something to be answered for there. Plus, there's a post-credit scene where Monica finds the door to the basement. She sees again all these roots with purple energy emanating from it, and Pietro is still around. So why is Pietro still around? Is it really that Agatha summoned him, or is it that she disguised someone else as him? Again, still so many questions, and I cannot wait for next week's episode. But worst of all, ladies and gentlemen, she killed Sparky. She killed the dog. That's the most effective way to make us hate a villain. So it's official. We hate Agatha Harkness. And before that intro, the episode seems to end with Agatha putting Wanda under a trance of her own. Her powers manifest as purple energy. Wanda manifests as red. So it feels like Agatha is, at this moment at least, more powerful than Wanda. which is interesting. The last thing we need to talk about is the commercial, because it's again one of those that is so subtly dark. It's all about someone going through depression. And look, I know what that's like. And this woman goes to get a pill. All the same actors again. It's the woman who's supposedly the mother, the dude who's supposedly the father. She goes to take the pills and they name all the side effects and they're all positive until the last one that says side effects could include even more depression. And then it ends with Nexus, which is the name of the pills, because the world doesn't revolve around you. Or does it? They make a really nice, timely pause in that. And if you think about the commercial, right before Agnes comes in, Wanda takes a pill that has a red N on it. It's probably the pill from the commercial as well. And so now we at least have a few answers. We knew coming into episode 7 and then 8 and 9, this was all going to be about answers. It's the third act of the show. Look, this was the worst kept secret, that Agnes was Agatha Harkness. If she was going to be anyone, she is Agatha Harkness. It was very clear. I love how Kathryn Hahn eats up the scenery in her intro and in her presentation. She even carries the bunny and pets it like a classic 60s villain. In her lair, we see a book that looks very much to be like the Dark Hold. She's a book of dark magic. It could also be related to the devil. The chances are still alive. Hope still springs. And we still have 2 episodes. Things could change. Never take the answers we already have for granted, as long as there's still more story to tell. And there's still more story to tell in WandaVision. So we still have questions left up in the air. Who's the aerospace engineer that Monica and even the actress Teyonah Parris keeps teasing that she really wants to see our reaction for? Well, I guess we have to wait to either next week or 2 weeks from now. And is Ultron still involved? Because we get another name drop. I found episode 7 to be extremely satisfying in the sense of keeping that pace up. That now that we're in the third act, this episode was all about answers. It doesn't stop with the mystery, but we get some answers to put the pieces of the puzzle together, and I think that's extremely important. But what did you think? Did you enjoy the reveals of this episode? What are you expecting to see next week? Let me know all of that, all your theories. Go to my Ultron video to check out what I have to say about that. And thank you so much for joining me yet again for another WandaVision episode. You are the best. I love doing these every week. And so I'll be back very soon with more movie reviews and next week with another WandaVision review. I hope to see you there. So until then, love each other and love the movies.